the chat. Thank you, Amy. You can find the chat button at the bottom of your screen next to participants and next to the button with a heart that says react. We are going to be, Jackie and I will be checking the chat, answering questions as they come up for folks. Um, so yeah, I think that is all. Um, we have a really exciting class for you tonight, and we're just so excited that you're all here. Um, so with that, I want to go into a little bit of context for how this class got started. Um, so I don't remember when, but I was still on the board. I was the board secretary back in 2024. So my term ended this past September. Um, and so back when I was still actively on the board, I was at a board meeting with Amy and Jane, and we were talking about various board-related topics. We were just having a typical board meeting, and I think we had started to get on the topic of, how do we invite more people in to do ritual, and what are some of the roadblocks that people feel like exist for themselves when when they can't do ritual. And so we were just sort of hemming and hawing and talking about this, and we sort of had this conversation about how people think that they need to go out and they need to like buy really expensive ritual tools, like really expensive shiny crystals, or like a very fancy wand, or like a really shiny cool bowl. Um, so as we were talking about this, we started to understand that like that's not true at all, right? Like Rev Michael Dangler wrote up a great, fabulous piece, which lots of us are familiar with and lots of us quote. Um, Three bowls and a stick. It's really that simple. And so we started to like brainstorm, like, could we do a class and have people go and find ritual tools that were just around their home? They were just in their home that they already had, that could make their ritual tools accessible to them. And so that idea sort of sat and simmered, and Amy and I kind of touch base every once in a while, like, man, we should really do that class. That class sounds really cool. Um, and then I was attending the last annual meeting of where I was a board member. Um, and so I was hanging out with Revs Ashton, Rev Missy, and Rev William. And I was telling them about this course and this idea that we had for a community class. And they said, making your own ritual tools is something that Traci Auerbach is really passionate about. And I was like, cool. I love Traci. She's great. I really got to know her this past year at Summerland. So I'm totally excited to invite her. And so I reached out to her and I said, hey, we're thinking about doing this class. Would you want to participate and help us build it? And so there was this really great collaboration between our two groves, and we're really excited to share that with all of you here tonight. But before we get started into sort of the meat and potatoes of the class, I did want to take some time. And do a icebreaker. So we're gonna go around. I'm gonna go around. I'm gonna go around the screen, as it were, and I will pick names as I see them. I'm gonna leave Amy and Traci for the end so that we can just kind of transition them into the next stage. But the icebreaker is, what's the ritual or holiday you want to be most comfortable participating in? I'm going to give you all time to think, and I'm going to answer that question first. Um, I really like I really like all the holidays. Obviously, I'm pagan. All of you are pagan. We probably like all the holidays. Um, but I would really like to be able to feel comfortable doing a solitary ritual. I don't typically feel comfortable doing ritual by myself. So I'm really hoping tonight's class will give me the skills to do, let's say, Beltane on my own for the first time. I feel like we have enough time between now and Beltane where I can find the ritual tools that are in my own house and have the tools that I need in order to do that. Okay. Hopefully that was enough time for your brains to really think about this. We are going to start with Jackie.
Hey, I think most of you know me, but I'm Jackie, one of the magpies, and I'd say the ritual I'd like to be most comfortable doing is probably the August High Day. There's not really a lot of lore for my tradition, and so it can be hard to like pull those together, you know. But I'd say it's mine.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Next, Jane.
Um, Hi everyone, I'm Jane Webster. I'm the senior druid of Mountain Ancestors. I think a lot of you already know me. Nice to see you, everyone. Um, Rather than a specific ritual, the thing that came to mind for me is I want to practice getting more comfortable with just like ad hoc, ad-libbed ritual, like as needed, being put on the spot, being able to move through the core order and lead people who are familiar with that through it. And being able to do so not only in formal rehearsed scripted ritual, but without a script, and still being able to find the tools and the words that I need to be able to do that for people.
Awesome, Jane. Yeah, that sounds like a really good goal to have. Um, I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Nieves Elman?
Hi, it's Nieves.
Apologies.
So I like to be all over and everywhere, and so I like to learn new things. So when people are willing to present something, I'm always willing to kind of show up for it. I've been a solo practitioner for a very long time, and then I was a part of Mountain Ancestors for a while, and so I'm just always trying to learn things.
It's exciting. We're super glad to have you tonight. Okay. Fed? Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, me. Okay. Okay. Hi. Uh, so, uh, I am I am a bard and I rarely participate in ritual other than playing music. And uh every once in a while I'll get up and do some part, but it's typically I I don't do much other I get stuck in my little corner playing music. And and part of that is I am not very comfortable in front of people doing things. Um Despite my theatrical background. It feels very different. And I guess what I want to be more comfortable with, particularly like at Summerland, where we have people from all over, and frequently people I don't know or don't know very well. Uh, Sorry, I'm gonna have cats jumping on me all night. Um, we were not home today, so they are very wound up now that we are. Uh, and so yeah, and part of why this was so interesting to me is that Jess and I are not stuff pagans. Like we don't buy stuff. If we want something, we make it. And so like that, this feels very much in the same spirit of what we do. So wanted to see what other people are doing.
Awesome. Is Jessica there with you, and do they want to introduce themselves?
I'm not really going to be. I Today was a 1099 day. I'm gonna be playing Baldur's Gate, so
Jess is playing
Okay.
Baldur's Gate. Jess had a hard day at work. Uh, Things that
Okay.
were supposed to print once printed three times, things like that. So I'll be, she'll be listening.
Fair. We love her anyway. Okay. Wes? Hmm. Yes, you're still muted, or you're gone.
Is that working?
Hi.
Can I? One of these days, me and technology will work together, I promise. Um, I personally come from a background where the solo stuff comes really easy because that's what I've done. The ritual side of things in general is just where I struggle. So I would just love to be, in general, more comfortable doing just the ritual side of things as a whole.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're excited you're here. Reyes? Yep, you. I may have mispronounced the name wrong. My apologies.
That's okay. Yeah, it's Reese. It's
Reese.
same as like Reese's Pieces or peanut butter cups. Hi, I'm Reese. I'm from Canada, specifically like the Niagara region in Ontario. Hi. So I'd really like to become more confident and comfortable with specifically rituals around the Samhain time of year, and specifically with commemoration of lives that have passed, both our animal companions and our human companions. Um, it's really important to me and to lots of people that I know, so it's something I want to be comfortable with.
Awesome. Great. Um, Michelle?
Um, yes. Well, I'm pretty new to this. And I've always had anything spiritual to do it solo does not bother me, but to be in any sort of position of doing it as a group or especially leading makes me really uncomfortable. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It literally can just be leading a meditation. It freaks me out. And even so much so that my husband and I have decided to pursue this together. He's been in ADF for longer than me. And it makes me terrified to think of just doing ritual with him. So I want to be just more comfortable in general with group ritual. And then I'm a crafty person. I really like to make things, and it feels really very fulfilling spiritually to me. So that's something that this really appealed to me. That's one reason that really appealed to me.
Awesome. That is really great. We love crafting people. Crafty people are great. Rev Z.
Hi. So glad to be here this evening. I feel like I am always growing and trying to learn to be a better ritualist and leader. And so I'm really here for inspiration, and to learn from you all.
Wow, that's exciting. We're glad to have you. Revs Ashton. I don't know which one of you is closest to the camera. You can flip a coin. Y'all are muted.
Well, if it's just me, it's just me.
Okay.
I'm Rev William. Um, Been around the pagan block once or twice. Uh, what would I like to get better in? Mine's oddly specific. For me, it's Beltane. It's Beltania. And I think it's, for me at least, as a creature of order, it's the least orderly of the high days. Uh, Very like wild, abandoned, kind of fertility abound, fecundity everywhere. Uh, it's very chaotic, and I think that's a practice for me. So I hope to get better in that as I pagan along in my life. Thanks.
Awesome. That's great. We're glad you're here, William. Let's go ahead and go with Tracy, and then we'll end with Amy.
I'm gonna try and make this really quick. I'm not good at that, so I'm gonna try and test myself. So for me, a specific rite is that I would like to be more comfortable is also Samhain, largely because with that ancestor work also comes a lot potentially of trauma and a lot of things that we have a hard time, I think, defining in our ritual space and how we can incorporate that as part of the work. And so Samhain would be that for me. I'll pass that to Amy, I think. Yes.
Yeah. I think mine would match up with Rev Williams actually. But just because it's the only one that I've never managed to actually celebrate with a group, and the only time I've ever celebrated it was during my DP during my first year because I had to do all of them. And it just somehow ends up always being the one that's scheduled at a time that I do not find a way to make it work. And all the rest of them are so much more personally meaningful that one sort of drops off the radar beyond like, oh crap, I need to pour some water and some whiskey and say something real quick before I go to sleep right now. And hi, I'm Amy. I am Mountain Ancestors Grove treasurer, and I will be taking us through just the next little moment, which is kind of why we all, when we came together and talked about this, felt so passionate about one of our classes being specifically about finding what we already have. And I think that this has been mentioned already, this idea, and I first heard this term from our Jane, this idea that pagans often have a sense of like right having, right? So you can have right action, right ways of thinking, right ways of feeling. And as pagans, we often feel like we need to have the right things, including knowledge, right, and words and skills, but very much the right tools and objects. And that can really be a barrier to a lot of people in engaging in ritual, both as individuals, not even in getting up in front of people and showing up and doing the vulnerable, I'm leading, I'm talking thing, but also just the vulnerability of showing up to the kindreds by ourselves and feeling like, just what I have good enough, which is very often kind of a surface level version of, am I good enough? And the answer to that is always yes. That is my soapbox for the evening. I will try to keep it to one. And this is very much about our druidry as a place where we express what's important to us, our values, our virtues, and specifically in ADF. And we're ADF Grove, so I'm going to get a little ADF on some of this. One of the reasons that right having is sort of problematic is that it doesn't keep us in integrity in our relationship with the earth. And whether you are an ADF druid or some other kind of pagan, sustainability is very much an important part of being in right relationship with the earth, whether you think of earth as mother or as this large sort of organism of which we are a part, much as our kind of own microbiomes are a part of us, right? However you conceptualize that, that is something that we have to honor and take care of and respect. I think we've all probably heard the words, there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? And if you haven't, welcome to a really useful phrase. I think sometimes that phrase gets taken as, therefore consume whatever you want and however you want. And that is not what that phrase means. That phrase means we need to be aware of how difficult it is to make consumption choices. We need to be aware that not everybody has the same levels of access to even having choice because of income levels, because of all kinds of things that have to do with our social location and identity and what we experience in the world. And we need to make accessibility a core part of how we show up in our groups, in our communities. And we need to do the best we can with what we have in order to be in integrity and in right relationship with the earth and with each other and with the other than human kindreds, right? So doing what we can to reduce the harm of our impact showing up with what we already have helps us to do that. It's also, I mentioned kind of cost and social location, an important part of hospitality, which is one of our core values, right? Welcoming everybody, making sure that everybody feels really engaged and invited to be part of our communities, no matter who you are and what you bring with you, is something that this kind of centering of this helps us to do. And I don't love the term fertility for this particular virtue. I would much prefer something with a little richness to it, like fecundity or generativity, but it's an opportunity for us to bring creativity into our lives, to look at what's around us and just step to the side a little bit from its everyday use and get curious about how can we relate to this differently, and how can these objects and these things in our lives show up and serve us and help us to serve the kindreds and ourselves and our communities. And that opportunity for creativity or generativity or fertility or whatever word you want to use invites a lot of play. And play is also how we learn. It's how we show up in a really fully human way, right? And so getting curious and creative about how symbolism can play a role. Fire doesn't have to literally be a flame. Having a well doesn't mean we literally need water to be in front of us. I can have and have used a fossil of some sea creatures. I live in San Antonio, Texas, and there's limestone. This used to be ocean under where I'm standing. And so I've used that to connect to the well and the waters. So there's a lot of invitation in that way of approaching how we show up in ritual and what we bring with us, to be curious and creative and playful. And also, and this is maybe another specifically ADF kind of thing, but in ADF, one of our kind of sayings is why not excellence? And unfortunately, I think why not excellence sometimes gets translated into why not perfection. And I'm going to tell you why not. And that's because it eats our capacity to show up as full humans. It eats our ability to engage. And if we can't be engaged, we can't be in right relationship. We can't be in relationship at all because we're really busy hiding. And yes, we've got to negotiate boundaries and how we show up and how much we share. And that's all very natural and healthy part of community. But when we're trying to be perfect, we're not able to be ourselves. And so taking a deep breath and stepping away from all the stories we get about how you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to have and all of those things, and just being with who you are and what you do have and all of the richness that you bring, is hopefully one of the things that's invited by showing up and playing with the idea of how do I find what I already have in the world. And with that, I will hand it off to Traci, who's going to talk us through what this can look like as we show up in the core order.
You stopped early. I have been graced with 2 extra minutes. Boy, will I take them. Hi, everybody. I am Traci Auerbach. I am the senior druid of Three Cranes Grove. Some of you I know, and some of you I have not yet met. So hello, everyone. Hello, Fenn's kitty cat. So really quickly, after that lovely discussion about who we are when we attend ritual and where we need to be in ourselves, I get to follow up by talking about core order of ritual. That's so exciting. So for folk who have not done their dedicant path work, for folk who are new, I thank you for listening to what I'm about to say, but also for the people who are very familiar with what this means, I'm sorry. Core order of ritual, which you can find on the ADF website. And let me copy the link. I like to share. I have like so many tabs open. So that is our current site for what the overview is for our core order of ritual. Specifically, it's meant to do 3 things. First of all, the idea of having our core order of ritual is what separates what makes an ADF rite different than other people's rites. What is it specifically that makes up an ADF rite? In addition, it sets the general sequence, which allows an ADF member to go to any ritual and pretty much have a good idea of where you are in the ritual and what to do and what to say. And finally, the last thing that ideally it specifies things that we don't want in our rituals. Talking about like blood sacrifices or things like that, closing our circles. Those aren't things that we do. And by stating what we do want, we can also define what we don't. So really quickly, the core order of ritual is essentially a fancy phrase that defines what steps are required to complete a ritual in an ADF style ritual. And interestingly enough, if any of you are able to look up that page, excuse me, the only thing that is required when you look at that is fire. Fire must be included. If you look at all the other things, may include. A lot of these things say may include. So the only thing that is required at an ADF to complete an ADF ritual is a fire. That is a fire of sacrifice, specifically insofar as how we perform our rituals. The reason, the reason is pretty simple. Fire is not only crucial and key elements in like the creation of the cosmos in many Proto-Indo-European faiths and myths, but also almost across the board, that is one universal way to send your prayers to the divine. And so that is it is one of the most unifying myths or items in a myth. And so that is the core requirement for our rituals. In addition, we do add, if you would like, in rituals, you can have a representation of the fire, the well, and the tree. Now, when we talk about the article from Michael Dangler, which I can also link in there in a second, the 3 bowls and 1 stick. So a bowl for your offerings, a bowl for your well, a stick can be your tree. But that is not required in ADF ritual because we can imagine and envision those things without having a tool. But when people often talk about the things that they bring to a ritual, the fire and offerings are the only thing that's required. Placing order in our ritual from the chaos of our lives, our mundane lives, we then separate the realms, the heavens, the middle realm, and the chthonic realms, which often are lined up with the fire, well, and tree. And so really, I mean, I could keep talking, but I think, unless anyone has specific questions about that, that's really all you have to have if you're at home by yourself. It doesn't have to be real fire. You can have a simulation of a fire. You don't have to have a tree outside for this to work, for our magic to be able to be magicked. But what is ideal is some type of representation of a flame and something you have to offer. The offering is also part of that flame of sacrifice. But that offering can be a prayer. It can be your words. It can be a song. So you don't necessarily have to have a physical, tangible item to make an offering to the kindreds. And so I think until I get to talk a little bit later, which I shall do, I think I can pass to Jackie.
Alrighty. Well, yeah. So, we planned an activity. Surprise. Y'all get to get up and move around and do some stuff with us today. But the idea was a scavenger hunt for a ritual tool. Now, I've kind of talked about some of the reasons why the ways that pagans can kind of collect lots of things for ritual is sort of at odds with their values. We've also talked about how you know the only base requirements really for the core order are that fire, or if you want to deconstruct things, you can do three bowls and a stick, right? So these are some ideas to think like how can you play with the idea of ritual tools and sort of find something if you had to do a ritual right now at a moment's notice, which you will not be doing that, by the way. No one needs to get scared about having to do anything beyond finding something in your home. So the idea is that we will take about 5, maybe 10 minutes if people need that time to walk around our homes wherever we are and think of what's like one item I could repurpose right now for a ritual. Maybe it's a high day ritual, maybe it's a specific devotional ritual to a deity. But think of like one just item around your home that you could use impromptu for ritual if you had to. So we'll take about 5 minutes for that and then come back together and we'll just talk about why we picked that item. All right. So, uh, ready, set, go. I'll try and call you back. So keep an ear out. I'm gonna set a timer as well.
Hey, if you have come back and you have your ritual item, you do me a favor and use the react button and send a heart or send some claps just so that I know who all is back, please. Great. Cool. Cool. That's 3, 4. Nice, Jackie. That was done. 5. It's almost everybody. That's pretty sure that's almost everybody. I love it, Amy. All the little hearts. That's great. That's great.
We have about a minute and a half left. And I think not quite everyone's back. So if you can hear me, you've just about 1 minute. Alrighty, I'm hoping the last couple folks come back with really cool items for ritual. Um, I think Rev Z, you're back because you had something in the chat. Um, Rachel, was there anyone else in particular? I think because I don't see Tracy here, but otherwise I'm not sure if we're all back.
When I asked for people to like do a react, I'm pretty sure I saw most folks. I don't know if I saw anything from Rev William. Are you back?
I saw afterwards.
Oh, okay, great.
William's back. There we
Marvelous.
go.
Awesome.
Yep.
That's great. So yeah, I think most folks are back.
Okay. Um, well, in that case, in the interest of time, I'm gonna just start off with my item. And the idea again is just to share why people thought that the specific item you found would be interesting to use in ritual or in a certain part of ritual. So I found this before we started tonight, but it's actually ooh, if we can see that, there we go. It's a gold coin from an aquarium I visited. And so I had the thought that this could be useful as like a representation of the nature spirits or even of the well. Once again, just because it's associated with an aquarium. But yeah, so I could just use this as, a symbol essentially. Um, and maybe I'll do what Rachel did and kind of go through my Zoom page just in order. So Amy, you're first. What's your item?
Oh my God, okay, bear with me because it's ridiculous. However, when I saw it, I really wanted to come up with a reason to use it. And if anybody had the privilege of joining us when our Jane ran Samhain for us this year, Ancestors Night, and went through the evolution of humanity, It's a stegosaurus, and they're little and it's actually a chip bowl, and you put chips here to be the back of the stegosaur, but its own little offering bowl. And I was like, oh my gosh, for the ancestors and doing that kind of evolutionary thing. I know it's ridiculous, but I saw it and I was like, this has to be my thing.
I love that. That's fantastic. All right, Rachel, you're next for me.
Cool. So, um, when I was raised, and I was like learning paganism, like when I was 13 and like my mom was still alive, something that she kind of really emphasized to me was that the things on your altar should be gifts, whether that is gifts from other people or gifts from like the landkin themselves, right? So if you're walking and you find a really cool stick, as an example. And so for me personally, I really like a cluttered altar. I like lots of little knickknacks. I like lots of things on my altar. Um, so I don't know how folks can see this, but I have two shells that have been gifted to me. This one came from my mom when she was still alive, when she came back from Florida. And this one was from a coworker of mine who went to Hawaii who brought this back for me. So these are gonna go on my altar. And what I love about she shells is that they're a representation of water and land, right? They're this beautiful combination of these two aspects of our three kindreds, of the well water tree. Um, Not the three kindreds, my bad. So I really love that. And those were sitting right here on my desk, and I'm gonna move them over to my altar. So I'm excited about that. Thanks.
That's great. Love that. And Tracy, if you want to go next.
Okay, so I had planned, like, I'm going to set up some things on my desk before I do this tonight, so that I'll have all the stuff handy. But then I'm like, then that's cheating. So I decided to start fresh. And I'm like, okay, I've gotten to the point in my paganism where I have a lot of pagan stuff. So I'm like, okay, what isn't actually pagan stuff? Now, if you're making offerings, please wash these thoroughly. However, I've got a million empty pill bottles. Like my kids need antibiotics. I have that. So not only can they're almost all of them are watertight. So if you wanted to carry waters from one ritual space to another, you can use these. Again, if you do that, please wash them out, because I mean, I don't want anybody to like dope themselves up with I don't know, dust of antibiotics. But you can use them as your bowls, your offering bowls. And depending on how many you have, you can, make a tree out of them. I was just trying to think of like the most off the wall thing that I had that hadn't been thought of before for me.
That's super clever. I like that a lot. All right. Next is Jane.
All right, I went overboard and then I kept making things while you guys were talking. So I don't know if that's cheating. Uh, I I left the room where my altar is, so I couldn't cheat by grabbing anything there, but I did bring a notebook so I could draw stuff. So I have a little folded tree. I folded the bottom so it'll stand up. Maybe. We'll see. I tried to make a little well. I found a cool leaf. I thought I might try to fix it to this tree, make it more tree-like. But here's the part I was really proud of. I found a flashlight and a cloth napkin. So I made a fire. I'm very excited about it. This was fun.
That is so cool. And I love that we're already crafting here. Strong crafting vibes today. Rivzi, you're next.
Okay, so I'm coming on camera so I can show you. I challenged myself because, like Tracy and like Jane, I have a good number of pagan-y things, and I didn't want to cheat. So I decided to stay in the room that I'm in, which is our like office music teaching room, but it's also overflow plant space. Maybe to my partner's chagrin, but it's just what happens. But I hadn't actually thought of this in this purpose, but I have this beautiful propagation station. And it's like in a set of three, which is a great druid number, as we know. And it's, it's pothos leaves with their roots going into the water, very well in tree, very kind of Norse leaning, which I'm not really at all, but that's what I grabbed.
That is so cool. I love that. All right, Rev William, you're next on my screen.
Well, before Cuddles decided to come and flop right in my lap and trap me on the sofa, I was applying the same rules as Zacchaeus with if anybody's been to the Prairie Home, you can't turn around any direction and not bump into some sort of ritually, pagany, oh shit, grab it, call it into service sort of object. So it's terribly unfair. However, my plan was for the cat not in my lap to fetch, if anyone's seen on top of the room divider bookshelf, I have like a 3.5 foot tall hookah that was, in Rachel's tradition, given to me. And I've always wanted to kind of call it into service as sort of a world tree and adorn it with things and hang little bobs off of it, or have a special kind of ritual and produce smoke from it. I don't know, but that's what I was going to pull. So, a 3.5 foot tall hookah that was a gift from a tattoo artist.
That is super clever. I would love to see that sometime in service. So I'm watching the Prairie Home now. Um, Nieves, I think is how you say your name. Sorry if I mispronounced.
You are all good. That is how you say it. Just like Rev Z and William and all the other people are saying, I have lots of things that I've acquired over the years. So trying to kind of look outside of the box. I have not been great with plants, but a friend gave me a plant that's propagated in water. So I was just staring at that, looking, well, that would be a good world tree slash water and everything else. And then obviously, like most pagans, many spaces in my home are actually ritual space. So it's kind of cheating because there's things all over the place. So it's also that whole process is there's like little nooks of different things all over the place. But I thought a plant in water was kind of awesome.
Absolutely, and very druidic. Love it. Okay, Michelle.
Okay. Yeah, I just got in my car because I have to go pick up my son for martial arts. But can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, just a second. I've got to turn the car on.
Saw the demand.
You want to come back to me?
Even in a
Sure,
good
sure, absolutely.
the market can become saturated. There can be overbuilding. And so when
All right. Wes, you're next on my screen.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I chose to go off of things that are not mine. So because my mother is not pagan, so I'm like, but she's a hoarder, so it also is a little cheating. But I found this wonderfully blue bowl that is very flowing, and I thought could definitely sit in for a well representation. And then I was also sitting here and decided to get a little crafty and made a little fire with a post-it note and a basket. So what I made.
Yay for the crafts.
Yep.
Very cool. All right, Reese, you're next on my screen.
Hi, yep, just give me 1 second. I did, in fact, get up because I figured I had to. All right, so I have two things I can show. One is what I'm currently using as a well, but it's not cheating because I just started and I don't have a whole lot of things. So it's a brass bowl of some kind, and it has dragons kind of etched into the metal all around the sides, which I thought was really cool. It was a gift, so I like it. And then I don't think there are any kids here, but for my tree, I didn't really have a whole lot that I could use, and I didn't want to use just a stick of nondescript whatever, just because I didn't want to. And I found this that it was a gift from Ecuador. and it's a phallus. And it's made of wood. And so I have it sitting on my altar as my tree.
You might get points for most creative of the night. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very cool.
And if you want it censored from the video that we put on YouTube, let me know. I can do that.
I mean, it doesn't bother me, but if you need to do that, by all means.
Oh no, we're gonna get demonetized from YouTube ads.
Ash is next on my screen, and I see there's also text in the chat about a necklace. I'm not sure, Ash, if that was the item, but I think that's very cool.
Yes, that was the item. I didn't know if because I kind of got skipped over at the beginning. I didn't know if you were like, oh, there's no camera, so we're not going to do voice. So I just put it in the chat. But yes, necklaces are very big for me. Like, it's rare to see me without at least one. Anytime I leave the house, I have a couple. So, it was one that it was actually a surprise gift to me last year. And then I went to wear it yesterday, and both the clasp broke and locked, and then one of the chain beads broke. So I set it on my altar, and then I went, oh, it was the first thing I thought of as soon as you were describing this thing. I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to be wearing it. Maybe it's for this. So I went and grabbed it.
Very cool. I like that a lot. All right, and Fen. Oh, I think you were muted. Oh, no, you're still muted,
There
Fen.
we go. I got it.
All right.
Okay. Every time I scroll over the button, it pops up a little helpful hints thing, apparently, and that I can't see when I'm clicking. So, um, chili oil. One of the things that I feel connected to is cooking and making ingredients, and I make my own hot sauce. And one of the things that floats to the top of hot sauce when you're making it is a layer of capsaicin and diluted somewhat in oil. It is flammable and makes that kind of fire, although that's noxious because then you have capsaicin in your air. But I've done that before, outside. And also it's hot. Like, it is really hot. So fire in a bottle.
Fire in a bottle. I love it. And then Michelle, I know you're still in the car. Let me know if you do want to share what you had in mind. Otherwise, we can keep going to the next part. But all right, so in that case, I think I'm gonna give it to
Oh, I
Traci.
couldn't figure out how to unmute myself.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. So yeah, I'm parked, even though I'm still in the car. Well, I wish I could show. Is everybody able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I wish I could show you because, like, for some really weird reason, maybe 12 years ago, I went out and bought a whole bunch of sticks and put them in a vase, and like kind of cool and curvy sticks. And I had no idea why, but when I went to look for a tree, there were 9 sticks in a big vase on the place already that I had planned to use as my altar. And so I just moved them from the corner to the center, and that's all I did. And then the other thing that because this is how I've been setting up my altar, is found objects around the house. I don't like to buy things. I have a bowl that my aunt or my cousin, they're both really big world travelers, got from somewhere on the globe, and it looks very traditional and like ethnic. And that's what I'm using as my well.
Very cool. I love that you had the 9 sticks. That feels very druidic as well. So that's fun. All right then. Thank you everyone for sharing. I'm gonna give it back to Traci.
Awesome. I get to talk to you about the next fun part. So the second part of today's little class is offerings. We use the word offerings pretty liberally in our rituals and almost any of our writings. So what are offerings? Offerings can be any gift you give as part of the exchange of reciprocity. Again, reciprocity is a word that we use a lot in ADF. And really, all that means is you give a gift for a gift. So if you are anticipating assistance with a kindred, you give them an offering. You give something of yourself of value. Does it have to be financial value? No, of course not. It can be something that is meaningful to you. It is something that is hard to replace, something that bears weight and gravitas to you. I could be sacrificing a handful of raisins because I don't have a lot around me, and raisins are a thing to me that has value. And so when we talk about offerings, I know in the beginning, for me personally, in my experience, I didn't have the stuff. I didn't have like a cool thing of barley and that I could sprinkle artfully, in offering. But the purpose of that is meaningful to you. So what has weight to you, and what do you think is worth that you can provide? Sometimes that's writing a poem. I've heard many people sing songs during praise offerings. But largely the idea is we are giving a gift for a gift. And that is a gift in thanks for something that has already been done, a gift for something that we would like to see in the future, a gift of wisdom, the gift of just being present in our rituals. Those are any of the many sundry ways that we can make praise offerings. And what they are, again, like I said, is what is meaningful to you. And so at the same time that we can go around our house and find plenty of things to turn into bowls and wells and use instead of trees, or depictions of fire, the things around us can also be offerings. We don't have to have expensive wine or whiskey, although I have heard many people say Morgan disagrees with me on that. Morgan likes the whiskey, and the fancier the better. But that's what is important to you is how you feel about the offering that you make. And there are plenty of times when you can kind of get that gut feeling like, you know what, I could probably do more. And that's a great way to, when you've done it enough, that you can start getting a really good instinct for, you know what, I may not have an expensive weapon or a tool that I could sacrifice to the bog for the kindred, but I can make this sacrifice instead. So why is finding offerings at home useful? I'm trying to check and make sure I'm still good on time. I'm great on time. Why are finding offerings at home useful? First of all, it's what you have at hand, and you don't have to go out and buy something special. You have anything that you might need in your home. It keeps costs down, like Dr. Amy said previously. You can be mindful of the resources you are pulling from the environment and using, and how you use them, because they're already something that you have. And again, we are inviting the kindred into our rituals. We are inviting them into our space. And as a good host, we offer them something of importance to us. And so that is one of the easiest ways to find an offering, is to think about what it is that you are wishing for, what you are anticipating, and being that good host and inviting the kindred by offering them something of yourself. So I think I made them put times on all of these because I will ramble if I don't. So I think now I can pass that over to Jackie.
Reese, if you had a question or comment real fast.
I have a question in regards to actually offerings. So I, like many people, have other animals, companions in our home. I have a couple of cats that are very curious about things that are on my altar, and I'm trying to keep the things that I put as offerings from being either eaten if they're not, animal appropriate, um, and just keep it safe from them. Does anybody have like any ideas on how to do that?
I I know this is gonna sound so like dollar store, but like literally Tupperware. The sacred Tupperware. I don't know if you haven't read the tome, but no,
I
but
love this.
I mean, it could be as easy as putting them in a Tupperware. If you want to get a fancy like tin, you can do that. But that's a way that you can cover it as long as it's not flammable. Um, I have always put out offerings, and if my animal of the house is curious, I let him eat them. Is assuming that they're of course allowed to be eaten by animals, because they're also part of this. They're our companions, and they are, on this plane. They're like, they're our nature spirits. They're the closest nature spirits to us, in fact. And frankly, if I put out oats and my dog ate them, I'm okay with that. It's been accepted by the nature spirits.
Awesome. Thank you.
Also, if you want to get fancy, speaking of the dollar store, you can go, they have glass cloches. You get a fancy glass cloche for $1.25. Okay, maybe it's not fancy, but
It feels fancy.
If you're wanting a little more of an aesthetic, you know, cover. Sorry,
Love
hopefully
it.
that answers your question.
I think we have another question, Mavis.
Not so much question, but also a remark. So again, obviously whatever feels right for you and everything. But I had a friend who once always told me that when her animals actually got excited or interested in her workings, that's when that working was already completed. So again, whatever works for you, however it needs to work for you and everything, it does not have to be this is only for the kindred, this is only for everything else. It can be just whatever flows and works in your household. So it's never just a strict, fast rule. Whatever you feel feels right. And that another thing, again, depending on the offering, depending on everything else, sometimes it's just easier to do it outside, maybe by one of your favorite trees, by a crossroads, something, so that your own animals who you know shouldn't be eating XYZ don't eat it.
Love that idea as well. Like putting it someplace else can also be a really good idea. Um, so for this bit about offerings, I think I'd like us all to take a minute and think about a potential offering that's in your home. Maybe you know there's something in your kitchen. Maybe when you were looking around for a ritual item, you found something that could be given as an offering. Not saying that anyone has to give any of these, but even thinking about this issue of pets and how to, different ways to strategize handling where to put offerings or what kinds of offerings. If there's something that you could use for offerings or use as an offering, I'd love people to think about that for a couple minutes, and then we can share that. If you really want to go find that item, you can. Um, I think maybe just give 2 minutes for people to come up with an idea, and if you do have an idea, just like react again or give me a thumbs up. Okay, that should be right about 2 minutes. I'm gonna start with my people who I saw reacted, and we'll kind of go from there. But I'll go first, because I also cheated and prepared this ahead of time. But I have a Bridges cross, and it's a devotional item to her. And when I wear it as an offering. And so so that day is sort of devoted to Bridget then when I wear the cross. So that's sort of my maybe creative take on an offering because it's not it's a continually used thing, right? It's a reoccurring use. So I think I also saw Nieves possibly first.
I think it was Rachel, but I'll go really quick. So I have a natural talent for breaking things. So necklaces, earrings, all those other things. So beads that come off of that, everything else like that. I always give those self offerings because they're always on me because I just broke it. I also have a talent for carrying seed or some kind of bird things. I have a thing for crows. So at any point, if there's like, oh, I don't even have anything with me, there's always something in my car. So that's what I use.
I love that you use items that are like constant for you. That's super clever. Rachel, do you also share?
Yeah. So a couple of things. I guess I've gotten more comfortable with like everyday items that I have in my house being offerings. Um, for me, there was very much like a divide in my brain of like these things are for mundane things and these things are for my ritual magic stuff. And so for the longest time, I like wanted to like buy things specifically as offerings. And so that's what I did. But sometimes I will, forget that like, oh, it's like 6:50 and we have ritual in 10 minutes. Let me like run around my house and find like offerings for the land cannon. So I've gotten very comfortable with, grabbing some rice or grabbing some pinto beans, some dry pinto beans, and like using those as offerings for the land can, or whatever else. I've also started to like be more comfortable with just offerings of words and just saying like the words that are on my heart as an offering. Um, Sometimes I just find myself, going through my day and needing to take a moment and say, kindreds 3, may my words be an offering, like, and just take a moment and sort of helps ground me and remind me that like every moment um can be a holy moment.
For sure. I love that a lot. And Revzi also said that that is such a mood to run around the house, which I do it too. We've all been there. I think Wes, I also saw you next.
So, one thing that I really love giving as an offering, which is also really convenient, when you don't have a lot of money to go buy things, is homemade incense. I make my little incense pellets, and I absolutely love giving those as offerings. And there's something that is like so simple and like this one specifically, like like the biggest amount of ingredients are like pine, cedar, and dandelion leaf, which I got from out in nature, so not anything that I had to purchase myself, so yeah, that's one of my favorite things to give, just because it's a nice, awesome offering that I love to make myself and put some of my energy into, to then offer up. Plus, it's super nice on the wallet. So, yeah.
I love that a lot. Okay, I think I saw Reese next, and then Ash, I believe.
Hi again. So I'm part of a group of medieval or pre-17th century recreators. And we do all kinds of hobbies, all kinds of things that making things. And a group of us got together and made clay pieces because in our organization, there's a subgroup of queer and gender diverse people who all have, we have the emblem of the blue feather as kind of that emblem. And so we got together and made a whole bunch of these cute little clay blue feathers. So those are really great And we also always give each other gifts, so brooches, and a whole bunch of things. And those are things that I value, but I also have a ton of. So I value them emotionally, not so much monetarily, but I think they make good offerings.
Absolutely, there's a lot of symbolism in them, I think. So that's fantastic. And Ash?
So I had one thing and then now I've thought of two, but one of them has a question attached to it, so sorry about that. But I tend to do a lot with peanuts because a couple of the different people that I work with have crows in their things, and then so I'll offer it, and then when it's done being on the altar, it gets tossed out to the local crows. And they have a good little snack. But the thing that it came up with the question is something I haven't really done before is doing like little doodles and things and using those as offerings. My question with doing that, like, one, it gets me to draw more, so yay. But two, like, that sounds awesome, but how do I then properly dispose of it back to nature? Like, I'm talking like little, like, canvas little drawings.
Definitely a good question. I think a lot of pagans are low-key pyromaniacs. I don't suggest burning paper though. This is not like safe. So that might be a thing that comes up in people's minds, right? You burn the offering if you have like a proper cauldron or something and it will be contained, that could be good. But otherwise, don't like, I don't recommend messing with that. I'm a big fan of throwing your offerings in the trash. And I say that as someone who also says a prayer as I do it, and so it becomes ritualized throwing away. And so I tend, as I live in apartments, I tend to always throw things in the trash because I don't have easy access to the outdoors. And so I would say if you can sort of ritualize the way you get rid of an offering after you've given it, that can be really important, just practically speaking. Nevis?
Another thing one of my friends had offered was a thing was to actually put it down the sink. So depending on what kind of paper, depending on what kind of stuff you use, putting it down the sink or down the toilet, again, whatever works for you, whatever feels with all the caveats. Yes, some of us are very much into pyromania, so it is a thing. But the caveat around that is setting it on fire in your actual sink with nothing around it, and then dousing it with water, and then pushing down the ashes with water as well. So it's just another form of being able to not only give it to the spirit because of the fire, but also giving it back to Gaia or water in general and to the underworld. So whatever works for you.
Love that. Yeah. Definitely fire safety is important, but there's ways you can be creative with that as well. Reese, if you want to say something real fast.
Yep, just a real quick question, actually, because the burning brought this to mind. Uh, the ashes afterwards, what is the opinion about using the ashes for something, even though the actual item itself was meant to be burnt as an offering? Could we use then the ashes?
I think Tracy has an answer to this.
I mean, once you have burnt them, the belief, and this is belief that is backed by almost every pie myth, once it goes up in the smoke, it is then given to the gods, or the kindreds, or whoever we're offering to, right? So the ash of it is not part of that. The remains of that, I mean, if you want to give that symbolism and dispose of it in that way, sure, that's great. But oh, sorry, yes, Proto-Indo-European. Sorry. So yeah, but if we're going by myth, and that is also what ADF kind of believes, is once that smoke rises on the fire, that offering has been given. And some people believe that it's rematerialized in God form or in whatever form they need to accept it. But the ash, the thing that remains, is not the gift. So if you want to paint with it, if you want to paint yourself with it, I don't know if that's okay. But if you want to paint with it, as it is my not ordained self making the belief that I think that you can use it. Yep. you're not like stealing the offering you already made. So sorry, I got excited about that.
Very cool. This is such an interesting discussion. I'm all for these kinds of thoughts. But in the interest of time, I'd love it if people who have not gone yet could quickly say whatever offering it was that they had in mind, and then we can keep going, and hopefully the class won't get too much longer than it was meant to be.
If I could go really quickly.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure, I wanted to grab something that was perfectly around me that I didn't have to move my body to get. And I found a container that I have of old buttons and stuff that I picked out for projects and things. But inside them is a bag of buttons that were my grandmother's. And I keep wanting to use them for things. Maybe I'll do an art project here or there. But like just holding it and thinking about getting rid of any of them it has a heavy weight. And so I know it would be a good offering. And so, one of these buttons at a time, I think would be a really great, especially a great offering to the ancestors because she picked these out. She had plans for them. And I ended up holding on to them. And I think because it holds so much weight for me, I think it would be a very meaningful offering. That to me would be a genuine sacrifice. and it's just buttons. So, you can find buttons anywhere.
I love that. Anyone else like to go?
Well, this is spicy wax, essentially, for arthritis treatment that I make. I make a lot of waxes, body butters, tinctures, things like that. And those very often get added to offerings, especially for healing work, if it's associated with whatever that healing that I'm specifically asking for has a related analog through sympathetic kind of, it looks like this thing, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to offer is those kind of things that I've really put not just thought, but also the gift of time and process into.
The gift of time is definitely one we don't talk about enough. So I love that. Would anyone else like to go? All right. If everyone else is feeling good, you maybe share your stuff in the chat, your different ideas. Then I think we can move on to the wrap up and any additional questions. So Rachel, if you are able to take it away.
Just first let me say that I apologize for yawning so much. I've been up since like 2 this morning. Been a long day. This has been an awesome class, y'all. This has been such a beautiful class. It has been awesome and wonderful to be in community with all of you. It's been great to hear and see all of your ritual items. It's been great to hear about your own offerings and your own understanding of what your individual practice looks like. And that's been really cool to experience. So I want to encourage, as you continue to develop your practice and as you continue to develop your altars or find new ritual tools as you do, that you find ways to continue to grow. I do want to invite you, this might be a little bit of a plug. There are lots of opportunities, especially with Mountain Ancestors. I know Mountain Ancestors and Three Cranes Grove does this a lot, where we have throughout multiple rituals, both our full moon rites and our high holidays, where we invite people to say various parts, where we ask people who will call to the ancestors and who will call to the Earth Mother. And so if you have found a tool, if you have found an offering that is something that you want to kind of get into that habit of being in ritual with other people, I would strongly encourage you, if that opportunity presents itself, to step up and take charge. I think all of us who have led ritual would be more than welcome to invite you into that space. So one last call for questions. Anybody? When is the next class? Awesome. I am so glad you asked, Ash. Um, I don't think we have a date yet. I think, Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, um, we are looking at the first week of March. Um, yes. So the next class will be focused on specifically around making offerings, and we have a Google form that we would love for you to fill out. One of the questions in this Google form is a question regarding what day of the week would be best for everyone to attend a class. So we're going to kind of take in that information, and then we will make a decision based on those feedbacks and those survey answers.
And if I may, really quickly, Rachel,
Sure.
yeah, what Jackie just said in the text. We are going to be doing a kind of a make your own ritual tool at home class. And we want to make sure that we are inclusive to all kinds of people who have all kinds of financial situations and or a ability to acquire stuff. So if we're thinking about doing a couple of classes that you can make maybe dough out of things around your home. And if you're unable to access those materials, we would like to send packets to people. So that's why we're asking what your address is. And if you want us to send you non-allergen stuff, we are happy to send out the packets of materials ahead of time. So let us know if you would like for us to shoot over some craft supplies to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, so please fill out that Google form. And again, it's been great to be here with all of you. Thank you so much. That's kind of a wrap on this first class. We can't wait to see you again.
Yay. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for having it. It was so much fun.
Who's in charge of the recording?
That would be Amy.